little freedom fighters, little goat freedom fighters, the Canadian Maple Leaf rags on. Welcome to the shit show. Hey. What a day. Tore off a whole bunch of metal in the front of the shop, replaced with wood. It turns out the whoever stacked up my stained wood suckered me. And there's only 3 pieces of stained wood left on a stack of about 30. I'm like, oh no. That stopped that pretty quick. Out of stain, gotta stain some wood up. Lost a day, it's Thursday. Actually thought it was frickin' Tuesday or something. I don't know what's going on in my head lately. But anyway, let's get some voices heard right now while the gong show goes on behind me with the Canadian goat freedom fighters. I don't even have to look at them, I know what's going bonkers behind me. It's like they think the trailer's an octagon. Alright, Alaskan experience. Hi Steve, my name is Skylar Lee and you can share my name. I'm a 34-year-old gold miner in Alaska. I've been mining for the past 3 years in various places throughout the state. The summer 2020, me and my girlfriend were out on a mining trip moving supplies to a new mine site on 1.5 miles up Wolverine Creek, literally in the middle of nowhere. So we were camped for about 3 days, still moving equipment in. Tram line and all, just like Gold Rush, Whitewater, but no bullshit drama. Anyways, we were in camp in the evening and I got that sense of fear that is so overpowering. I've worked outside my whole life and I'm a country boy from Tennessee, and I've never just randomly got scared like that. Creepy. So I started scanning the trees all around me because I feel like I'm being watched. I tell my girl about how I'm feeling, and then I see it. Up on a ridge above our camp, I see movement in the bushes. The only problem is that the said bushes are head height tall, and I can see movement above them, about 4 feet above them. So now I'm shitting myself thinking it's a big ass bear. But I never could see his face. In my memory, it's like it's blurred in my brain. That thing chased me and my girl for an hour, all the way back out. We'd hear crashing through the woods and loud movement of something big. That sucks. Now on another note, my girlfriend is in Alaska, Inupiaq, aka Real Eskimo, and she's always believed in Bigfoot. Her people literally talk about him and teach him to their children in the villages. We watch you every day now, and we both question if. We watch you every day now, and no, we both question if that was a Bigfoot. That must be, and now we both question. The other thing I can't shake is the fear that hit me for no reason while I was in there. Just plain scared. When you mention the fear thing, me and my girl will just glance at each other with that knowing look. They are real, 100%, and the natives have always believed we're just catching up. Anyway, Steve, I want to thank you, and if you ever want to call me to talk about this, I'm game. Here's my number. That's my cell, and my government name is Skylar Lee. I believe you, and my gut tells me you're cool. I'd like to hear from you or just hear this on the show. Thanks again. You got it, man. Share it. And I would like to talk to you one day about that. I got a list of phone numbers a mile long. But we'll get to them. I'm working my ass off to get this place done and a bunch of other shit done. And then we're really gonna crack open a whole bunch of knowledge and voices. Okay, man? But just ask around Alaska, all right? There is a pile of sightings experiences around Alaska, everywhere. Alaska, the Yukon Northwest Territories here in BC, the entire coast is a hotbed, but then again, I believe that's only because the entire coast has a lot more human traffic, so that's going to equate to more sightings with the forest people, alright? Now anyway, again, you guys, for all you guys watching and listening to all this shit, try to, I'm going to challenge you, see how strong you are, to take from all of these what you will or leave it. And that means not go in the comment section or wherever and blow a gasket and start slinging shit and insults. Alright? Take from it what you will or leave it. Everybody gets a chance to talk. If you got something you want to add, some knowledge, some experience, Email it into me. If you don't agree with what somebody's emailing in, oh well. You don't have to. But it doesn't mean you have to lash out like a 3-year-old kid that's got his little toy taken away from him and lash out and start screaming and stomping your feet in the comment section or wherever else, right? That's a sign of absolute weak between the ears. Alright? Take from it what you will or leave it. Okay? It's easy. Alright. 3 Bigfoot experiences in Tennessee. Hi Steve, not sure if I can get past your junk folder trying to send this again. Well, made it. I'm 55, my name's Jim, and my son Matt is 25. We have 3 experiences. I'm ex-military, 10 years, USAF nuclear weapons technician, 463 with top secret clearance. Went on to work for Boeing and eventually did IT work for DOE in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. 30 years with the government. You know what, just because you said that, there's going to be a bunch of people screaming you're lying. I don't know why, there seems to be a handful of people that as soon as they hear somebody says they had clearance or do have clearance, they instantly go into attack mode. First experience around 2010 was backwoods camping up by Angel Falls, Big South Fork, Tennessee. I was alone. Estimate about 3 a.m. I was in a 1-person low tent. I woke and was staring at nothing but the sound of my tent being shaken. 1 foot from my face, very angrily. I controlled my breathing as my heart was going up my throat. It was completely silent and I never heard it walk away. It was basically a ghost. That's kind of creepy. I'd gotten the strange feeling that something was watching me that day. I never considered Bigfoot or such during those years, never considered Bigfoot was in Tennessee. I prayed it killed me by the neck if it was going to kill me and not to drag me off chewing on me. My mind rationed. It was a mad bear or something. I fell back to sleep and that was the end of that. I didn't have a gun. Oops, I was lucky. Second experience was summer 2018. Son and I were prospecting gold in Coker Creek, Tennessee, north of Chattanooga, Tennessee, to give you an idea of location. 2 significant things happened. Number 1, I heard run through the camp. And 2, a bipedal creature ran by in the creek. The 6th night we were woke to hounds chasing something in the area. The sound of stomping feet getting louder and louder. I heard if something was coming. I have experience of what a herd can do. During Desert Storm, I was boar hunting in Balıkesir, Turkey. The Muslim community used pots and pans to run dozens of boars up the mountain towards us. I thought I was going to have to climb a tree. Of course, you could hear the ground, stick cracking and bushes shaking and all. I stared at the front of my tent, watching intensely as I knew it was coming to run over me. Somehow, I think they used sound to terrorize us. As it got louder and louder, it was like beating drums. But you could physically feel the pounding earth, very heavy. Same weight of bulls or cows. I was just sitting there waiting and watching to die. In my mind, I was asking where the hell did a herd get loose in the woods, but it was also like drums beating. Louder and louder and closer and closer. There was no sound of sticks, leaves, snorting, or any ground noise. These things were heavy and solid. But I don't think they actually touched the ground. We joked and called them a ghost herd for a long time. They went through us like we were invisible. I guess they were in spirit? They never touched anything. It was all sound. Matt speculates he heard them running individually earlier across the creek and thought they eventually all got into step. He speculates there was about 10 of them running together. He had heard more than I did. I had to get control of my breathing. Matt was looking out both sides of his trailer and saw nothing. During this time, we were both frozen in fear, shock, and confusion and did not speak. That's pretty creepy. Second part was the bipedal ran past us. We were probably 10 feet from the creek, right after the ghost herd. I heard something running our way. Dutch, Dutch, Dutch. And here it comes. Total time, 2 to 3 minutes. As it got closer, it got louder and so clear. It was not splashing or dredging water. The dogs were quiet this time. Its stride was perfect and long. It jogged by us and slowly started fading as it ran up the creek. It was amazing because the creek was 3 feet or better in places and did not slow or miss a step. It was perfect. and clearly large steps. It sounded like it was making 5-foot increments or better. This creek is easily up to my knees. I'm 6 foot, and better at places. We had spent 6 days prospecting this creek. It would have been twice my leg size to do what it did. It was an individual. My son speculates at one time 3 or 4 of them got into his sink and also ran by and probably did. They are perfection creatures, high intelligent and so smart we are just dumbasses compared. At that point I had to check to see if I was dreaming and confirm the bipedal. I set out my tent window to Matt. Was that 2 feet? Matt said, yeah. What about the herd? I said, yeah, I heard that. But that was 2 feet, right? Yeah. I was so excited about how clear the bipedal runner was. I'd finally, in my life, confirmed there are creatures that must be near 10 feet tall, making that kind of stride, and it was so smooth. Super, super exciting. Everyone says bear, deer, etc. I know what I heard, and this was bipedal and strong and a giant. I had not imagined this. This entire event that night went on for an hour or more. At times the dogs ran something up the creek and you can hear the dogs dredging water. It was very clear. I felt they were playing with the dogs, but occasionally the dogs did get in trouble. The dogs had been chasing things every night that week, but this was the first night they ran by us. At one point we heard a dog get kicked to go silent. It had a hoof bark as its air was knocked out. Then the silenced dog. We figured Bigfoot picked it up and covered its mouth because we eventually heard it barking at the other end of the creek. It was crazy. There were 3 dogs and one was the main one because it was much louder and it was obviously catching up to them at times. This was fascinating as we still sat in our beds totally in fear and wonder. The next day we investigated and talked to a guest at a cabin a few hundred feet away, and they said they came out with guns that night and didn't know what the hell was going on. I did find where the dog and Bigfoot had that little scramble in the grass on a bank by the creek. The dog prints were there, but no other prints, no deer, bear, etc. There were no tracks. This is all done by a ghost. This area of Coker Creek was where the Cherokee Indians would camp for the summer, cool in the mountain. Teepees as far as you can see, so this place does have supernatural abilities, I guess. So that was a crazy experience. Third experience was July 2021 on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. We had put out trail cams for a hobby. Alright, kind of lost that for a second. What do we got? It had been 3 years since the Coker Creek experience. We had already relaxed, forgotten what can happen in the woods. I was backwoods camping and had a fire and dinner and went to bed. About 3 a.m., went out to pee. On the way back, I seen red eye shine. I did have a red light on. Entering the tent, I joked that something was watching us, and we laughed and went to sleep. I woke to the top of the trees roaring as if they were being shaken to hell. If I tied a rope to the ball of my 4-wheel drive Chevy and tie it high on a tree, I could duplicate it. We burn wood for heat, so we live in the country on a farm, and we are not city slickers lost in the woods. We have worked with trees all our lives. It was that powerful, and not something you want to wake up to while sleeping in the woods. I woke Matt and said, "What was that?" He said, "Take out your earplugs." I said, "I don't want to," joking, but I really did not want to believe what I was hearing. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm in another horror movie. But it was not a movie. The trees were being shaken very violently and threatening. It was about 20 feet away, and it lasted 4 to 5 minutes before going completely quiet. 20 feet. That would suck. No sounds whatsoever. It was a new moon, so it was pitch dark. No sound of it moving in the tree. Nothing. This was the horrifying thing. When you're desperately trying to get information on something and it gives you nothing. And the creek nearby was also quiet, so they can turn off all the sound somehow. That's frickin' bizarre, right? I remember thanking God that my neck did not make any noise, and I turned my neck. Wait a minute. I remember thanking God that my neck did not make any noise, and I turned my neck. That's how freaked out I was. We did not move or speak. We posted 4 trail cams that day, and none of them was in our area, of course. At 55, this is the worst experience I've ever had. As I realized the terror/adrenaline/unknown in me was removing my strength to fight, I knew I had to stop fearing or it will give me a heart attack or reduce my ability to fight. I don't have a gun. Matt had a .22 pistol. I had my headlight in my hand and that I had ready to turn on. As I wait for this monster to jump my tent at any second, I was resolved to see it before it killed me. It must see me. Maybe 20 minutes sitting, staring into the dark, and deaf by the quietness, another thing happens. Something slowly floats past our tent. It had no steps. It had a digital / cricket sound. The tone was det, 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 det. 3 for a beat, start, stop. Matt spoke under his breath. It's moving towards the camp, where we had a fire. I was effing done at that point. I heard it. What now? An alien? I knew I could not let it terrorize me anymore. I knew I had to maintain strength to fight by hand if needed. I ignored it. When you're about to die, you learn to get real. I lay down, and if I heard myself breathe, I would wake up to make sure I had the headlight properly gripped, ready to turn it on. I started trying to figure out if we could walk out back to back. Matt had his .22 pistol. I felt if we did not move, it had to make the first move, so we held our place. Here's some weird stuff. When the beeping thing floated by, Matt said it reached into him and tried to get him to vocalize. He felt it was vibrating his vocal cords for him. He was really messed with and tripping. He said he held his mouth tightly closed because he was afraid it was trying to get his location. Our tent was between 2 large rocks, so I think they were hidden. I think we were hidden. I did feel like they were looking for us. Matt also felt he was about to stop his own heart. He had stopped breathing completely and realized he better breathe. Jesus. This is the amount of fear and terror it was pushing on us. It really pissed me off to realize it was that mean to us. It wanted us to die. So these things are not a joke or some fun hobby. You better be 100% in your spirit and beliefs if you want to go out at night with them. Also, you better be ready to die. If you have not had any clear-death experiences, if you've not had any near-death experiences, you better stay out of the woods at night. I've had 3 or more near-death moments. They help you accept death and therefore learn not to fear. I can relate to that statement. Sometime later, the nightmare started to fade. Around daylight, a woodpecker spent all of an hour raising hell about something as it ran away. I knew we made it. When the morning light comes, it's like you are reborn after something like that. This was far the most horrifying near-death experience I have ever had, and Matt thinks he almost died from fear. I think this is really his first real near-death experience. I've given you the basics of my experience. Matt and I both sat down and did the full story. If you could share a link to my stories, I would appreciate it. As you do warn people, do not go into the woods at night if you do not have a heavy firepower, as I do believe they can easily kill you. We do visit the area during the day, and we are gifting as such as therapy. It is important that you learn how to get back into the woods. It is important that you get over your fears. I do believe we are human, like man. We are divine man. We are the only creature that has God code / signature in our DNA. Bigfoot and these 5D creatures can see the light in us, our souls. If you're not spiritually alive, the light is dim. They don't mind killing a dead man. But they will back off the strong spirit man because it is right and they know it. Stand, do not fear. They know you are divine, but if you don't know that, then you are food. Sorry for the truth, but that is how I see it. One side note, we came back home. My wife said that we were white as a ghost for about 2 days. She had to walk around the house gingerly so she would not freak us out. Thank you for Place Teller's story. I need to have Matt write his story. He got brain effed bad. Jim and Matt, you can use our names. That sounds pretty freaking intense and terrifying, without a doubt. I don't envy that experience. I seriously don't think that they couldn't find you. I think the forest people, the Sabe, whatever you want to call them, I am 110% firm for me, not for everybody, I'm not dictating, but for me. They know our energy, they know all about us, they know our demeanor, they know our intentions, they know exactly where we are, especially when we're about to leave the pickup truck and head into the woods. Do they know where we are while we're at home? Well, we've had a lot of people, including some experienced researchers who have heard knocks and different noises in different areas and then traveled home 30 or 40 miles and then got out of the vehicle and the same noise happened right there in the backyard. So, what do you guys think? Huh? Any little clowns? They're probably stealing the show back behind me, aren't they? Little Canadian freedom fighting goats. Supporting the people of Canada right now during these crazy times. Now here we go, Black Hills, South Dakota. Hey Steve, it's Sunday, January 30th. I'm just listening to your podcast from Friday, I believe, and there was a guy from South Dakota looking to make contacts in my area. I live in Sturgis, right in the Black Hills of western South Dakota. I used to ride trails on a Polaris RZR with half a dozen buddies a couple years ago. One day we cut trail through the woods to a power pole cut line. It was rough going, even in very modified big tire high ground clearance UTVs. When we stopped near the edge of a large drop-off, there was a small clearing where we all parked. It was the first time I saw what I will call tree structures, and very strange things like a tree broken off about 9 feet above the ground, with some small stones stacked on top of it. The broken trees had no other broken trees anywhere near them, as they were all individuals. Several times while archery hunting in that same area, I had feelings of terror and dread and ended up leaving the area. I grew up hunting in the Black Hills as a young boy with a .22 rifle. I'm used to the mountain lions. They've never bothered me, even though I've been circled by them, as they screamed. I'm not afraid of them, but in that one area, I don't think I could ever go back there alone. There's something not right there. No birds, no other wildlife, not even lions. The guy who wrote into you is correct. There's hardly any information about sightings in the Black Hills. However, it is very rugged there, and most people have never seen 95% of what's out there because it's not accessible by roads. You have to huff it in there on foot. If you can put me in contact with anyone else in my area, I'd appreciate it. You are welcome to give them my email address. I had an I Believe Bigfoot sticker on my windshield, and of course, was the laughing stock of my buddies, who never miss a chance to take a jab at me. We all got buddies like that, and they're actually the good ones. I know that we are right. Do you remember a couple years ago in North Carolina in the mountains, there was a little boy, 3 years old, lost in the woods for a couple of days, and temperatures in the mid-20s at night. Everyone assumed the boy was dead. 2 to 3 days later, he shows up in an area searched multiple times with dogs. When asked how he kept warm at night, he said, "The big bear that walks on 2 legs kept him warm at night. He brought me back here." That was on the local news channel there and Facebook. When it first happened, the boy said that the bear laid on him at night to keep him warm. Facebook posts were all deleted within a few days. Thank you, Steve, for all the crap you take for all of us. I'll buy you a beer and a steak anytime you find yourself in Sturgis, South Dakota. Douglas. Okay, man, thanks for that. It's good that people are reaching out and saying when and where and offering up other people to know about, to answer other people's questions about where and if anybody else has experienced anything there, right? I think that's important. What are you doing? What is up? Hey, little goofy thing. These animals are so hilarious. Man, I didn't realize that these little mini goats were as intelligent as they are, but they are frickin' intelligent. Brave. He's spying at the chickens right now. I wonder if he wants to go beat him up. Where's your little buddy? Huh? Oh, he's over there. Alright, let's see what else we got. Maybe I'll get one more on. I'm getting a bit of trouble for not being inside right now because there's other things to do, but what do we got here? What I know about the big guy. Title. Dear Steve, so let me start out with what my parents told me about the big guy. You can use my name. So many think I'm nuts, but I don't give a crap. As a child, I lived in North Texas near the Red River, Doan's Crossing, where they crossed cattle and wagon trains back in the 1800s. It was only a half a mile from my mom's homestead. At that time, she had divorced my dad and was married to someone else. Dad re-entered the picture a year or two later. We were watching the news one evening. Channel 7 was out of Lawton, Oklahoma, and it was 1978. I was 9 years old, and they had a story about Bigfoot. I thought it was fact since it was on the news, and it was a very good story, as they did poke fun at the Bigfoot phenomenon. After the story was over, my mom came out with her encounter, and here it is. Alright, here we go. She was still married to my dad at that time. It was 1971 or 72. At that time, we lived in northern Illinois, about 5 miles from Savannah, which is on the Mississippi River. We lived in the country with farmland, hills, and woods all around. Whenever we went in the woods, Mom put a yellow bonnet on me so she could see where I was. There was a lot of trees, but not much undergrowth. One night, our golden retriever named Stubbs started in. He was the best watchdog on the planet, and he kept me safe always. I was around 3 years old at this time, and I do vaguely remember what happened. Stubbs started going nuts. My mom went to the basement where we had a walkout door to the backyard in order to see what was up. She was thinking it must be a skunk or raccoon, or the like, which had the dog up in arms. Camera's not turning off. Must be because it's that monitor's attached to it. That's a good thing. When she opened the walkout door to a backyard, which faced the woods, our dear old Stub fled inside and hid behind the wooden box in the far corner. He was absolutely terrified. Mom smelled a horrible smell, which was not a skunk. It freaked her out, and she shut and locked the door, and got the dog upstairs where he would sleep that night. He always slept outside or in the basement. Until she saw that news story, she didn't know what it could have been. Now she knew. Fast forward to 1980, Mom and Dad were back together again. We were now living on the shore of a small lake just west of Mount Rainier. It was near Orting, Washington, where my dad was working as a lineman. We lived in a camp trailer for the summer. My dad was a drunk, and a mean one at that. That's unfortunate. Now, while we were living on the shore of this lake in our little towable camper, I absolutely fell in love with the mountains. Each day I'd spend fishing off this little dock. The only other people there lived in a house not at all that far away on the west side of the lake. We were on the north side of this lake. I couldn't find the lake on the map, but I watched the sun come up every morning behind Mount Rainier. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever been. Mom and I spent a lot of time picking blackberries the size of your thumb, and she made cobbler almost every day. As I said, this was living to me. Dad came home one evening, and drinking was his daily habit. I mentioned I was planning to walk around the lake the next day, being a curious kid. I was 11 years old then. He looked me in the eye and told me I was not allowed to go there. To stay right where Mom or he could see me. I was confused. What trouble could I possibly get into? There wasn't a single person that ever went to that side of the lake, and nothing to snoop in, so what the hell? I asked him why. He looked me dead in the eye and said, Sasquatch lives there. I had ever heard that term. So I said, what's Sasquatch? Is it a kind of a bear? He said, Bigfoot. And I knew not to press the issue because I had seen my dad beat my mom often. And he tried to kill her one time, so I dropped it. I hate hearing that stuff. Fast forward to 1994, my husband and I followed my parents to Juneau, Alaska. Dad wasn't working much then, and I had to spend time with him until we could find somewhere to live. So I asked him about Sasquatch. I asked if he really believed they existed. And I was on the fence at that point. He looked at me and said, Port Chatham, Alaska. That's all he said. This was days before the internet and Google, so finding anything about it was about as impossible. Until YouTube, I never heard another word about it. I asked if he had ever seen one. No answer. As before, I dropped the subject. Even at 25 years old, I was afraid of that man. But to me, whatever he knew scared him worse than he scared me. He wouldn't talk about it, period. My husband and I didn't care for Juneau at the time. We come from Phoenix, and Juneau was getting feet of snow that winter. We had enough, and we started back to Phoenix. We took the ferry to Prince Rupert and drove to Prince George and followed the highway south. About 20 kilometers outside of Quesnel, timing belt broke on my car. It was dark. You know that highway. You can't see anything at night through those woods. Nope. As we sat there with our hazards on, this was March '94, a car stopped to check on us. They told us they would send a tow truck and warned us to stay in our car with the doors locked and not to venture outside of the car until the tow truck driver arrived. I was 6 months pregnant at the time. When asked why, the only answer given was Sasquatch, and then they took off. I'm glad to say we didn't see or hear anything, but the hairs were raised in my arms and neck. The tow truck driver seemed to agree with the guys who made the call for us, and I tried to push this out of my mind. Fast forward 2020, I was on a solo hike up the Colorado Trail just outside Littleton, Colorado. I was going up a very steep grade with plenty of switchbacks. The trail was pretty busy that day, to a certain point, with the mountain bikes flying by at breakneck speed. But then suddenly I found myself quite alone. I was enjoying being away from people and didn't give it much thought. I'd seen a black bear down the trail. A ways back, I saw a squirrel, and there was no other wildlife. I assumed it was due to the fires in Colorado that year. I didn't think much else about it. As I hiked up this mountain, I heard a distinct tree knock, and I knew what it was instinctively. My sixth sense picked up on it, and I opened my mouth and said, "The Lord rebuke you in Jesus' name." Instantly, the alarm in my spirit was gone. I knew this alarm. I've dealt with demons a lot in my life. Holy. Fast forward 2021, it was Labor Day weekend. We live in Michigan now. The kids are grown, and we love to hike and disperse camp every weekend that it's warm enough now. Every weekend that it's warm enough, sorry. Now Friday, there was a huge windstorm, and when we got up to our favorite camp spot on the AU Sable River, we knew we needed to be watchful of trees, of falling trees or branches. It was relatively close to the West Branch, which is the Bigfoot capital of Michigan. Our spot was fine. We sat up all night enjoying the campfire, the river, the sounds of the forest. About 3 a.m. we heard a huge tree fall, about 18 inches thick, and it took 4 other huge trees with it. It shook me to my core, and we were still shaking when the sun came up, even though we were pretty sure it was from the previous windstorm. There wasn't a breath of air all night, but I sure didn't want to leave the area. It's our little piece of paradise. So the following night, my husband crashed out relatively early, since we were up all night the night before. I like to lay in our tent and listen to the sounds of the forest and identify the sounds, so it's peaceful. Anyway, my husband was snoring lightly. Suddenly I heard a growl outside of our tent. It was not a bear. It was something else. It was right outside our tent. Instead of getting scared, here's what went through my mind. I thought, God won't let you hurt me, so what you gonna do? It left. I never heard it approach, and I never heard it leave. And that might be because my hearing is not as good as it should be. Just the growl. But I did get the impression it left. The next night, Monday night, we were in the tent watching a few videos. Suddenly, I heard what sounded like a gorilla outside of the tent, right where the thing would have been 24 hours earlier. It sounded like a hoo, 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 like an ape would sound, followed by a demonic growl. I sat bolt up in my sleeping bag and asked my husband, "Do you hear that?" My husband reached over, got his Glock 9mm and wrapped around into the chamber. Silence. It left. I never heard it approach or leave, just like the night before. My husband's account was this. I've never heard a growl or what you described, but I did hear footsteps approaching and leaving. Steve, I never heard anything approach and leave either that night. Crazy. I said, hey, we should set up a trail cam at our campsites at night to see what comes through there. My husband looked at me and he said, I really don't want to know what comes through our spot at night. He's visibly shaken. The following morning, I didn't see any tracks at all. I mentioned this to a camping friend, and they said, it was a deer. Steve, I know what a deer sounds like. This is not a deer, or anything that is supposed to exist in Michigan. But we all know that panthers and Sasquatch exist here, as does the Dogman. Only the people who never leave the city think I am nuts. Earlier this past summer, we were on Creeper Trail outside of Damascus, Virginia. We were camped by bridge number 37. Beautiful. Still rolling. As we sat there tending the fire and shooting the shit, I felt something touch my leg. It felt familiar. I thought it was my husband rubbing his foot on my leg. To my horror, I realized he wasn't close enough to touch me. I flicked to my headlamp and looked around, expecting to see a snake or another critter. There was nothing. Nothing. I jumped up and said, what the F was that? I know something moved across my shin, so I prayed for God to get rid of whatever it is, and we had a peaceful time afterwards. During the same trip, on our way back to Michigan, we stayed near Red Rock Canyon, Kentucky. We were able to stay for just $5, dispersed camping as usual. Where we stayed gave me the creeps like no other place I've ever been. I'll never go back there, ever. Just bad, creepy feeling all around, and I was glad to leave at first light. Nothing happened, no noises, nothing, dead quiet. But the pressure you speak of was not enjoyable in the least. We were so late setting up camp we didn't have a fire, and I wish we would have. I'm a believer even though I haven't ever seen one. Yes. Oh, sorry. Am I a believer? Believer even though I haven't ever seen one? Yes. I asked God where these things come from, and He led me to the Bible and also to the book of Enoch. This connected the dots for me. Fallen angels exist on earth today, just like in the book of Genesis. The Bible tells us these fallen ones take women and force them to give birth to hairy giants. This is why the DNA from these beings show up as having a human mother and unknown father. The spawn, the fallen ones, are the giants spoken of in the Bible, exist today. As the book of Genesis says, they were on earth before and after the flood. David killed one. So if you handle them the way you would handle a demon, you'll be fine. But you have to know God to understand the power you have as a believer. And you cannot doubt. When the snow is gone, I'll be out in the woods every weekend again. I'm much more afraid of the people I encountered working in the ghetto of Detroit than I am of these creatures. Special note, these things don't die unless a human or God kills them. They don't die of disease or old age. And if you kill one, it becomes a demon. Most people don't realize that. It's in the book of Enoch. If you want to hear my hair-raising demon testimonies, my own, not others, then let me know. I really appreciate the work you do, and I thank you for this outlet. I like your no BS attitude and being willing to stand up for the little guys and the gals. Maybe this will help others who need to connect the dots. I was surprised when I heard other people stating what I know to be true, how these are unnatural beings in the flesh. Leona Lear, you can use my name, from the shittiest city in Michigan. P.S. Looking at moving back to Arizona. We would love it if your viewers could tell me about encounters of strange cryptids seen throughout the state. Thanks. Well, that was a good handful, wasn't it? What are you doing? What do you need? Your tummy's full? Showing off your maple leaf, aren't you? You're showing off your maple leaf. You know the camera's going, without a doubt. Right? Goofy little thing. Alright, I gotta go. I'm in trouble. I told her I'd only be about 5 more minutes, and I think that one took me about 15 or 20, didn't it? Okay, Arizona. I'll guarantee you we've had emails from Arizona. Recently, too, right? But make sure you go back if you're curious about the wares. And many times people are saying they can't find the email. Sarah was telling me there's a bunch of people saying they can't find the email. We've got an important email to send in, but we usually put it all over the place. But it's sharemystory@howtohunt.com or tellmystory@howtohunt.com, and that's the best 2 places to do it. All right, and give it for the other people who want to send information that people need to know or hear, whether it be medical, political. I don't care. If it's something you feel is very important for the people to hear, you get that into me too, and same deal. Either one of those email addresses, which you guys have all been doing already because I have so many emails, it's ridiculous. We're about to cut those loose on a different channel, right? Babbling, I gotta go. Late. Gotta put these 2 little psychos back in their pen too. Oh man. Okay, that's it. I will talk to you shortly. There's lots more coming.